Today we'll discuss what makes individuals engage in self-harming behaviors. Welcome to another episode of the Mental Health Break. Today I'm joined by Minh Hanh Corey, who will talk to us about self-harm and how we can help those struggling with it. Hi, I'm Dr. Nafisa Sikandri, a licensed clinical psychologist specializing in anxiety-based disorders. I created the Mental Health Break podcast to give you simple, actionable, step-by-step strategies to help you prioritize your mental health. Mental illness can cost you time and money. Ignoring your symptoms will only make the problems worse. Taking time out of your busy day to dedicate to improving your mental health can lead to long-term health and wellness. In this podcast, each week you'll learn tips, tricks, and proven strategies to help you regain control of your life, all while prioritizing your mental health. If you want to improve your life, regain control of your mental health, and feel empowered, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Today's episode is brought to you by the Transforming Anxiety course, an online, self-paced anxiety course to help you manage and control your anxiety from the comfort, privacy, and convenience of your own home. Learn how to transform your anxiety in just 6 short weeks. Course registration is now open. To learn more, visit transforminganxiety.com/course. I'm so excited to talk to Minh Corey today about self-harming behaviors such as cutting. Let me briefly introduce her before I bring her on. At only 24 years old, TEDx speaker, mental health keynote and public speaker, singer, songwriter, and goodwill ambassador to Holt International and HCMC Peace and Developmental Foundation, Minh Hanh Corey is building her creative empire through her understanding and honesty in mental health by sharing her mindset in music, songwriting, public speaking, and ambassadorship on how she has not only overcome the worst anyone could imagine going through, but how because of those sufferings and her unbelievable experiences, she has trained her mind to turn every negative experience into something positive and mastered how not only to survive in chaos, but how to thrive in it as well. Her mindset has not only created her rapidly growing empire throughout multiple industries, but as the drive and her passion to understand the misunderstood and help heal whoever she can reach around the world in everything she does. Hi, Amy. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for this discussion.
Me too. I just shared a little bit about your background before you came on, but can you tell me a little bit more about just your background and what got you motivated to focus on mental health in your work?
Yeah, so I was born and adopted from Vietnam. And so I was adopted to the United States, and I kind of grew up in Oregon, and I always wanted to be a singer. I always wanted to, make some type of difference and change in the world. And throughout living the dream of vocal lessons and really just planning my future, I went through a lot of mental health traumas and addictions, including self-harm and eating disorder and, attempted suicide and depression and bullying. And it very much kind of went through my life until I, started my own recovery journey. And then I moved to Nashville when I was 18 years old and started my music career and was signed to artist development by Dolly Parton's producer, Kent Wells. And it gave me this platform to really speak out about what I went through, what I learned from it, especially going through it when I was around, 9 to 15, 16, and then hitting recovery when I was 18, and just continuously growing as I was in this kind of public eye and becoming very self-aware. And mental health was just something I always just loved and was passionate and, put in my writing, put in my music, but also did a ton of press about it. And then it really got to me that, I just want to really continue doing this. And it got me to expand into mental health public speaking and very focused on mental health advocacy. And then I signed to a Goodwill ambassadorship with a Peace Foundation Vietnam, which took me to another level and kind of doing, touring in public schools and entrepreneurial projects with that. And then I just did my first TEDx talk. And so it's been an honor because I just want to help share my story and show that it's not only possible to overcome the odds, but to also create something because of it and create light from that darkness, because externally it's not always there, but it's always inside you, and to find that power and create something for yourself is so worth it. And I just want to show that if I was able to do it, anyone's able to do it, and everyone's worth it and deserves it as well.
Wow, what a powerful story about transformation and recovery. And I work with a lot of teens that struggle with what you're struggling with, and they have a really difficult time coming out of that because of their lack of coping skills or just not having the necessary skills that they need. So today I wanted to talk about self-harm behaviors within teens and young adults. So I just wanted to kind of get started with talking about what is self-harm, those self-harming behaviors, and what are some things that made you do it? What are some reasons? And then what was the process of you overcoming it and transforming that in a way that, like you said, through your music and focusing on mental health and focusing on healing? Just take us through that journey of what are some things that just define self-harm, I guess, initially, and then what did it look like for you and how did you transform it?
Yeah, absolutely. So to me, self harm is obviously the opposite of self love. So anything that is going to harm your soul, your mind, or your body, obviously that's in the name of self harm, whether it's, as simple as, skipping a meal, which can eventually, turn into just an eating disorder, or, purposely running into things to cause you physical harm. Obviously, I very much struggled with self harm, which I'm very, very open about. I have, physical scars that I'm more than, proud of being out of it to show off and show that they show you exactly, what battle you may have lost at that time, but the overall war that you won within that. And so for me, I grew up in a very, loving household, but my parents did get divorced at a time where my mom also was diagnosed with cancer and I was going to middle school. And so I was very young and I didn't feel safety in anywhere I was at. And then obviously being in school and still learning who I was even at that age, and hearing so many negative influences through the bullying, through the hatred that was thrown at me, it gave me a perception of myself that, as a child, I didn't really know anything better. And so I didn't feel safe anywhere. I didn't feel anything. And so it led me to the attempted suicide, which then turned into the self-harm, which was the cutting. And I was sad. I was depressed. I felt the feeling of being numb and wanting to release it. But then, as things got better, as middle school got better, I went to high school. I was a lot happier. I was out of depression. I was doing my music. I was writing, but it became an addiction and it became a habit. So anything I felt, I used the self-harm and the cutting as the coping mechanism. And it truly is that type of addiction because I felt everything at that point. But for me, every time I felt something, I felt by cutting, I was releasing it. And it was that coping mechanism, that, addiction that you have of just a comfort zone and not truly understanding how toxic that comfort zone is. And so it took me a very, very long time because it was just such a big habit to do. And then I realized, when I was 15, I really did want to become something better. I, knew I couldn't change the past. I knew I couldn't change my scars. So I wanted to make sure that what I've been through has some type of worth, not only for myself, but for other people who went through it, because I didn't have anyone at that time who was a type of hero. My hero was myself in 10 years. And so that really pushed me to start the recovery process. But obviously, just like alcohol, just like drugs, self-harm is a very cold turkey type of stop. And so it was shaky, obviously, for a couple of months. And then, like I said, my mom was fighting cancer at the same time. And she, found out that she had 6 months to live. And it was kind of that moment where I truly saw life and I saw death. And I wanted to make sure that her life was going to be the most beautiful thing in these last 6 months. But beyond that, my life could be as beautiful as it is. And that was, for me, a big push on understanding what I went through, understanding what I truly want, and communicating that within myself, that I wanted to get better. I wanted to do so much more than what I was doing. And I was tired of wasting my time staying paused when I could waste and give my energy and my time to recovery and to a better life. And that, life can end very fast And even though I went through it myself with the attempted suicide, actually seeing it in someone else that you love and you care about really woke me up to realizing how quick things can change. And so that was a big push for me, is seeing what life really was and knowing true unhappiness, to then know that actual true happiness is out there and that I can't wait around for it. I have to work and I have to create it. And it was a big, wake up call that I know with every time I talk about it, like it is time, because I was told to get better so many times, but I wasn't shown that it was possible to do. And that's what I very much try to do now, is I truly know what it's like to be in that position. And so I know that, telling people to get better instantly, doesn't always work, but showing that it's possible can ignite that light into someone to choose it for themselves and be able to do it moving forward in their own life.
Wow, you mentioned so many wonderful things as far as like being your own hero 10 years from now. That's something that hope is really what's missing when people that are depressed, right? And you wanted to instill that hope that I might not have what I want right now, but 10 years from now, I'm going to look up to the person I'm going to become. And then just like you said, a lot of people are suicidal and very miserable and want this life to end. And then when they're faced with mortality by losing somebody they love, they realize how precious this time on earth is and how limited it is, right? It can end so quickly. Why not make the most of it while we're here?
For sure.
The other thing that you mentioned was the addiction aspect of it. And so you are such a great advocate for healing for people that are addicted, where somebody like me, I've never cut, I've never, like, self-harm was not a thing when I was growing up. I try and help my patients, but a lot of them know that I don't understand the addiction aspect of it, right? Just like you were told, like, just stop. And you're like, no, but I'm addicted to this. This is this is my only escape. This is my only way out. My thing is, it's because you don't have enough a variety of resources, right? So that's what I try and provide for my patients, trying to give them a lot of different options, like holding an ice cube instead of reaching for the blade, right? Going and taking a cold shower, because you want to feel something. Why not use something, an alternative that's not as damaging and not as lasting when it comes to scars? Is that something that you think would be beneficial, or what helped you do the positives instead of resorting to the cutting?
Yeah, and I think all of those things are fantastic. Going through therapy, because I very much think therapy helps you communicate with yourself more than communicating to someone else to make that change. I was told that knitting was a really good thing. And so for a while I really did knit, and that pushed me to really understand that I wasn't just distracting myself from something, I was creating something better. And that pushed me to know that, okay, look, I'm making, sweaters and hats, and I'm not cutting, but I can take this further. And that's when I really, really started putting it in my music. And I started using passion as that drive to create something better that has a healthier, you still feel the feelings you feel. You're just putting them out in the universe and putting them, like, out of yourself onto something healthier that can actually create something better. So you're turning that darkness into light by something. And by starting with knitting, it pushed me to know that there's so much more I can do. And so I feel like when you're passionate about something and you have these hard times, you put that coping within something else, but it can actually be a beautiful thing that you create instead of taking it out on yourself. And once I was able to consciously know this is what I'm doing, it made me so much more excited to do it. And that pushed me towards this, recovery and excitement for growth and understanding that life doesn't get better, you just do. And it pushed me to just become so passionate about healing and growing, knowing that there's so much I can create because of it.
Can you talk a little bit about, being a teenager, you're going through so many issues. I mean, for you, obviously, it was different because you were dealing with divorce and the impending loss of your mom. That's a lot for a teenager to go through while being in middle school, which is the worst time of your life, right? I mean, I worked in middle school for 4 years, and it's a very difficult time for kids because there's so many changes that are going through inside their bodies with their hormones, with just figuring themselves out. Can you speak a little bit to that brain getting stuck on wanting to cut? Like, what is it? First of all, what made you even consider cutting? And then why did that become an option for you?
I feel like for me personally, I thought that, suicide was the way that I was supposed to go. It was how, I was going to end my suffering. And at the time, I thought I was going to end a lot of people's suffering. And so I decided to do it. And then when it was unsuccessful, I felt very frustrated knowing that I had some type of purpose in this life and I didn't want to live it. And that was the frustrating thing, is knowing that I couldn't die. And looking back, it's very ungrateful for me to think, because, I am very aware and I've known a lot of people who actually, unfortunately has lost their life from it. But at the time, I was in that mindset of just thinking that it was unfair that I couldn't choose to end it for myself. And so I got very, very frustrated and I started really, really hating just life in general. And that hatred just poisoned my entire body and it made me hate life. It made me hate myself. And so I became very numb to anything. And by being numb, I wanted a release, but I also wanted to just hate myself. And that was a big role on choosing to self-harm, is I was damaging myself. I was hating myself. And this was the way to do it, because I was just angry. I was very frustrated. And I was frustrated with life and I wanted to, rebel against it in some type of way. And that at the beginning was a big, big factor on why I started self-harming, is that to me was me getting my anger out on myself. And then, time passed and things got better and I got happier and I came out of my depression. I started, having friends, and my parents' divorce made our family, so much better and stronger and independent. And then going into high school, I had friends and was out of, that trauma of middle school. And I just realized that, even at that time in my mind that was still developing, that like life moves on and lives get better. It's whether or not you want to adapt and change within that. But at that point, I was doing it so much, it just became that addiction and started getting worse and started getting more noticeable. And, I very much think, as much as it's hard as any parent, especially being an adult, being a public speaker, seeing, people that you want to change. But my parents were very, understanding that they couldn't do anything unless I really wanted to do something. And so I empathize and I've stepped in their shoes within this. And it's hard to watch someone you love suffer, but they let me, with time, figure it out on my own. And I, eventually did. And so that's why I'm here to say, I can't tell you to stop, but I do know the everlasting physical, mental consequences of, taking it and digging your hole too far, and knowing that, I was very lucky in some senses, because I sometimes, other than purpose and destiny and, whatever my life is supposed to be, thinks back at those times and those nights knowing, I don't understand how this, didn't end awfully. And so, yeah.
So my understanding is that a lot of teenagers, I know for you, it started out as wanting to end it all with suicide, but a lot of cutters and people that engage in self-harming behaviors don't necessarily want to die. They just want to feel something. And I can definitely relate to that as a teenager, because there's, like I said, you don't have the mental awareness and ability to process everything that's happening to you. So then you feel overwhelmed. And I was numb. And I remember forcing myself to watch movies that would make me cry just so I could feel something. That's the extent of what I went to feel, and not necessarily to hurt myself in any way. But like I said, that wasn't even in our language, in our environment, to actually choose to hurt yourself with a blade, or, like you said, bumping into things and not eating. Obviously, I mean, eating disorders did exist back then, but not the self-harming behaviors. So I understand the need to feel because I did feel numb. I remember telling people, I'm like, you could kill somebody in front of me and I wouldn't even feel anything. And that scared me because I was like, I should feel something. Um, but at the same time, what I had was journaling, and I didn't have a therapist. I didn't have anybody to talk to, but my journal was my lifesaver because I did feel overwhelmed, wanting it all to end, feeling numb. But I did use my journal to help me get all of that out. Did you try any of those strategies, or did you just go to therapy and that helped you?
Um, I love journaling. I always, express that with anyone I talk to when they ask for my advice is I have about 5 journals now, like for different things. At that time, I went to therapy. I obviously, hit a bunch of stuff and I really worked through it alone. But I was very thankful that I had that creative aspect of my life, especially, wanting to be a musician and a songwriter. I wrote a lot of poetry and I wrote a lot of songs expressing, what I was feeling. And I always say that, writing anything, drawing anything, if you have the mindset of, allowing it to live on those pages, but not in yourself, it's very therapeutic. And so I'm always all for journaling. I very much use my journaling as songwriting, and it truly sounds cliche, but it was a big reason why it saved my life, and it got me through the things I got to, eventually do it with, is just expressing it, letting it live somewhere else other than within myself.
Yeah, and like you said, it's not the journaling isn't just writing your feelings, dear diary, today I did this and this and this, right? It's just you can draw, you can write poetry. I channeled it into creative writing. I remember turning in papers for my classes that really were about me, but I would write it in a third person as if I'm writing a story. And my professors at college even had no idea that I was really writing about myself, but that was one way for me to get it all out and get some feedback and get some help. But I also learned, like when I was a teenager, that I shouldn't tell anybody these things because they make me look bad and they make me look like I'm weak. What I didn't realize is the more I shared, the more connected I felt to people, the more I found people that actually cared and really wanted to help. And so it wasn't a negative thing. Did you reach out to anybody like that as well, or did you feel like you were hiding in shame instead?
I hid my self harm for about almost 3 years. I was very, very good, especially, learning singing and music industry stuff at the time, knew how to put on a show. And I hid my self harm for 3 years. My first year of my freshman year in high school, you would never see me wearing anything but a long sleeve shirt. And that's what gave it away. So it wasn't until I, tried a little too hard that people noticed. And I kept it pretty secret until, people would see my scars and they would start talking to me about it. And at first I would be like, there was obviously those people who did negatively judge, but then there was also, people who also were like, oh my gosh, you do this? Like I do this too. And you find that connection on, if any light can come out of trauma, is connecting with someone who has also been through it and to help them. And once I started, getting better and wanting to get better, and I think I grew up in a tiny town, everyone knew what I went through. They continuously saw the strength and they helped build me up, but also, bring me down as well. And I honestly am a big believer that, some type of trauma that you talk about, it needs to be a scar if it's before you really can start talking about it. If it's a wound, it can still get infected, it can still bleed. And so I very much made sure I was, pretty completely healed from all of this to be able to start talking about it. And, I worked really hard until I moved to Nashville and beyond to make sure that, you know, what I talk about is out of confidence, it's out of love, it's out of, knowing that I got through it and that anyone can. And, I'm very public with my scars. I never hide anything. And I think it's a power more than anything because it doesn't, it's not it's just it's who I was that helped me become who I am today. And I keep shedding, and so I can become someone better. And I think there's nothing to be shamed about that.
And I think it's so important for, I mean, you kind of recognize that, but for a lot of teens that are probably struggling right now and going through this, the teenage years are a very short window. It's only 5 to 7 years of your life. And then you're out of it and you become a young adult and you have more control in your life, and that it does end these terrible feelings. And that's what I loved getting out of it. Like I remember my 19 year, when I was 19, I was like, okay, this is the year I'm going to put everything, all the things that I'm afraid of, I'm going to put a cap on it. I'm going to move on. In my 20s, I'm going to start fresh. I'm going to be more empowered. And it's true. I mean, obviously I was still a work in progress and I didn't have the resources because I was kind of taking shots in the dark. But did you notice that things got better as you became 18, 19, 20? As you got older and your brain was more developed, you're able to process your emotions more. As your hormones were more balanced, things calmed down a lot more, like you said, in high school. And that's what I want my audience, if there's a teen listening, that it does get better. You will get better. Life will get easier. Is that something, that a message that you would agree with?
I think in a lot of ways, yes, but I always very much, a lot of what I talk about is, as you can see within the past couple of years, the world and life doesn't get better in a lot of ways. You just get so in tuned and loving and self-confident within yourself that you get better. So the things that would affect you don't affect you as much anymore. I'm so thankful that, I've seen more hate and more bullying in my adult life than I did within those times in middle school, especially being in the music industry. Things were always continuously coming at me. I just knew how to handle it at that time. And like you said, was more developed, was more myself, and was also an adult who, has been through those things as a child. And it's always made me very calm in chaos because of knowing how I handled it back then and how I can handle it now. And, it's not, I'm never trying to prove myself, but I always try to show myself that I am better than, who I was, and that life is life. And the second life gets like super easy, it's time for you to leave this universe. I think that the expectation that, once you're in recovery, it's 10 times better. And a lot of ways it is. I mean, I've never been happier. I'm 8 years in recovery now, but still a lot of things can still come and test those things. And recovery just doesn't end, especially when it comes to any type of addiction, any type of depression. It's always going to somewhat be there. You just can control it more, and you can create happiness and maintain it and know that you're worth that happiness instead of just dwelling on, what happened. You can create something so much better from it.
That's so true. You're right. Life doesn't necessarily get easier on the outside, but I'm talking about when we build the internal strength, when our hormones are balanced, when our emotions are in check, when we have a better sense of who we are, we're not as reactive, because from the beginning of time, life has been unpredictable, right? There's been chaos, there's been wars, there's been world disasters, there's been natural disasters and fires and earthquakes. None of that can we control ever. We can only control our reaction on the inside. And when we're emotionally balanced and healthy, then we're not as reactive to everything, because we only focus on what we can control. So when I work with my patients that have mental health issues, my biggest thing is sleep. Right now, a lot of teenagers are having mental illness and having a lot of mental health issues because of lack of sleep. They're not getting the sleep that they need because they're connected 24/7, but also they're not eating what they're supposed to because they're up all night eating junk food, trying to stay awake, right? So did that play a part at all in you, for you, as far as when you were going through the worst part of your life? Was it that you weren't taking care of yourself, so then your brain and your body weren't functioning, and then it was leading to these emotional issues? Did any of that play a part for you?
Absolutely. I struggled. I struggled with eating disorders when I was younger. That definitely had a big influence on my strength to not have any strength to stay exactly where I was in that time. I didn't have the strength to get better. physically, mentally, spiritually, nothing. And that really played a part in food and sleep. And I noticed also in my adult life, being in the music industry, it wasn't completely looked down upon to have an eating disorder. And so in my early 18, 19, 20, I relapsed on my eating disorder. I've never relapsed on my self-harm. That's something I'm 8+ years sober in. But the eating, really, I had to become self-aware that when I am starving myself of food, I'm starving myself of life because it takes away my energy to live life. And so that's something I really actually learned more in my adult life, was becoming self-aware that, I'm a very small person. I'm only 5 feet tall. And so I get very affected, as I was as a teenager, knowing that if I, restrain myself from specific foods, restrain myself from sleep, I have a big, long road I can go, especially with the line of work that I'm in, to go many, many days on 3, 4 hours of sleep. That's just the life that I live now. But I do also understand that it's not something I can maintain. And if I do have those nights, I know I need to balance my eating more. Like, I'm able to find that you have to have balance between your entire body and your mind, or else the two are at war. And that's when you have that imbalance. That's when you can develop these mental health traumas and issues, is when, your body and your mind are just fighting each other, because obviously you as a whole person is going to face the consequences of that.
We psychologically or cognitively, we understand that if we don't take care of our car, we don't give it the gas and the oil change and all that, it's going to break down and it's going to cost us a lot of money to fix. But we don't make that connection with our body. When our brain isn't getting the nutrients it needs, when our body's not getting the rest it needs, the exercise it needs, the sunshine it needs, it's not going to function the way it's supposed to. Yeah. And so we beat ourselves up because we're depressed, we're anxious, we're not feeling well, not realizing that our lifestyle is contributing to those emotions. And so if anybody's listening, if you have no other control over the external factors of your life, whether you're dealing with an abusive household or divorce or a sick parent or whatever, you do have control over taking care of yourself, making sure you're getting enough sleep, making sure you're eating the right foods, making sure you're going out for a walk just to clear your head, journaling. Those are the things that I really want to convey, that there's a lot that we don't have control over. Even I, as an adult, there's a lot I don't have control over outside of my life, right? Outside of myself. But I always focus on, okay, what do I have control over in this situation? When I was in school, the one thing that kept me going was my grades were important, because I knew that would lead to going to college, getting a degree, and having a career, and not being financially dependent on anybody. That was what motivated me and what drove me to do better. You had your music career, right? Is there anything else that kept you focused on, okay, I need to get better for X, Y, and Z?
I knew I needed to get better for myself. I think that's always been so clear to me, is if I get better for someone else and something happens with that one person, I'm going to spiral back down. I've always been able to understand that I have to be my best self to give my best self. I have to be my best self to give it to the people I love, to my family, and especially my career. And the biggest thing I am not within my career is I'm not a hypocrite. I'm never, especially being a mental health public speaker, coming on all these podcasts, if I'm not doing what I'm saying, that's just honestly, like, my nightmare is to tell someone and encourage someone to do something that I personally am not doing. And so I am constantly working on myself. I think it's the most dangerous thing to think that you are better and nothing else is going to happen. There is always room for growth, and accepting who and loving who you are, and knowing that you just continue working, you just continue living. And so I very much, that makes me come up and wake up every day and do the things I do and take care of myself, knowing that I do have to be my best self to get my best self, especially when, my life has become so public and out there. It's nothing but an honor to be able to take care of myself, knowing that it will help other people. And a lot of times, my fans always ask if I'm really, as happy as I am. And I truly am, because I do have my bad days. I think it's unrealistic for anyone to not have bad days, but I allow myself to have it because I know I need it to grow. And I know I'm not, where I want to be in my recovery or my life. And so it just keeps me motivated to continue that and to now be able to do that with other people, with my fans, with, people I collaborate with, to just continue moving forward together. But knowing that, you have to do it for yourself, but by doing it for yourself, you're doing it for everyone else.
That's so true. It's like the advice I give to parents. It's like you have to take care of yourself first before you can be there for your kids and for your family. Because if you're worn down, if you're depleted, you have nothing to give. And so for you doing the work that you're doing, you're investing in your biggest asset, which is your brain. And if you're not taking care of that, then you can't go out there and talk and give to other people and share your experiences, and your life will fall apart. And so, of course, it makes sense to invest in yourself. And taking care of ourselves is so important. I really, really want to emphasize prioritizing our mental health 24/7, because it's not a job we can take a break from, because every single day when I wake up, I check in to see, did I get enough sleep? Am I making the right choice when it comes to breakfast? Am I getting enough exercise? Am I exposing myself to unnecessary toxic information via social media or the news or whatever? I do prioritize my mental health 24/7. And a lot of my patients, when they come to see me, they do really well when they're doing the work. And then because they're feeling better, they stop doing the things that made them feel better. And then they go right back to where they were. And so like you said, it is something. And I can tell you, 20 years from now, you're going to be a completely different Amy. Your brain will completely change. It's going to be a better version of you. It's not that what you're doing right now isn't good. It's just you're going to look back and say, wow, I had so much more growth that I didn't know I needed. And that's life. I hope you continue to grow until the very last breath.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, that's what I've gotten, and what I very much, try to share is that it's life, good and bad. It's so exciting because, in the end, you're going to just want to be the best of yourself, and that there's always room for growth, and that you have to, heal yourself and your past trauma so you don't carry that into your best person, because all we want to do is be our best. And so I very much, my healing process has been, finding, my traumas, and then finding that person I was who like, I'm so thankful, gets to keep those, because I'm not going to allow them within myself now, because I'm still, like you said, trying to create my best self, but I can't be carrying these things with me to become that person. And but I have to be, instead of dwelling on it, thankful that there is a past version of me who, was that girl. And I, bow to her and thank her for keeping those traumas so I don't have to carry them anymore, because that's all anyone wants to be, is their best self.
Right. But I also thank my younger self for going through what I went through, because it really helped me be a better therapist. It helped me really connect with people at a level that somebody that's never gone through anything, none of the hardships. I'm just like you. I'm very open and honest about my hardships and my struggles, because that was a better schooling than any school I went to, than any program I went to, than any degree I got, because those were life lessons that really, really helped me grow. And like you said, life isn't meant to be happy all the time, because it's a duality. You need that tear and a smile. You need to have the sad days to really appreciate the good days, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's like rain. Like I live in Arizona, where we have 300 days of sunshine, but we complain about it. It's like, oh, it's another sunny day. And then when it rains, we get so excited because we hardly ever see it. And it's the same thing with our emotions. If it's just one emotion all the time, you feel numb. Like, I don't want this all the time. I want to feel something. I want to feel a little bit of high and low, just to feel that I'm alive, that I'm a human being, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I always call them growing pains. Those bad days are, they can be painful, but they're meant for your growth, because that's how you grow.
You're not going to grow any other way. Yeah, you need the
Yeah, exactly.
So speaking of our younger selves, what advice do you have for that teenager, that middle schooler, looking back on everything? What would you tell her?
I am so at peace with who I was. I, go back and think was if I did anything different, it wouldn't be where I am today. And I think that's the biggest things is to just keep going and to know that you are worth a life that is beautiful, that is you can maintain and that you're worth happiness and you also deserve it as well. But a lot of the times I feel like you don't have to wait for that. You can create it. You can start now. You can like skip all of the years that I had to go through that, you probably, can relate to. You can skip those more years and do it now. It's never too late to start, but it's also never too early to start. And that's what I always try to encourage, anyone now is that I went through the long process and, I am who I am because of it. And it's everyone's own time, but you don't have to wait around for something to happen. You can create it and make it now, and that can be beautiful, and that the unknown isn't always bad, but you won't know until you find out.
True. And that just keep going because this is going to lead to somewhere. Like you're on a journey. Like if we're starting a road trip, right? Not every destination, every road stop, every pit stop is going to be a good moment for us. Maybe we'll face some thunderstorms or some really dark skies and some scary moments, but keep going because you're going to get to your destination and it will get better, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm so thankful for the lessons. I always say too, it was almost like a rehearsal to be able to live the real thing, to do the real show. And I wouldn't know exactly how to handle myself in relationships and my career if I didn't fully understand and, went through the things that I went through. I don't wish trauma upon anyone, but I definitely think if you do go through it, you can learn so much and you can turn that negativity into something positive for your future self.
Well, think about all the songs that touch us so deeply, like the breakup songs and a lot of the songs of being really down and out. Those people had to be in a very dark spot to write those songs. They literally turned their mess into a message. And we all can do the same thing. This is where the journaling comes in. This is what I was doing when I was turning my life issues into creative writing assignments for my school. We're doing it in poetry and song, and that's why we can relate. It's like we're never going to be able to tap those emotions unless we're in that. And so not being afraid of dark emotions, because that's all in us. We have the dark, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of that. And that's what I really appreciated about my journal is that I allowed myself an opportunity to really explore all the negative aspects of myself, the good, the bad, and the ugly that I was too afraid to express to anybody else. Because, as teenagers, we have to wear a certain mask, right? That I'm conforming. I'm just like everybody else. There's nothing weird about me. But yet when you allow yourself to really explore those dark sides of yourself in your journal, then you become multifaceted and not just one-dimensional person that's just, oh, I'm into football or I'm into cheerleading and that's all I am. No, there's so much more to you. Explore all those sides because that's how you become a whole person.
Absolutely. I agree 110%. And I've talked to a lot of people lately who have been asked, who are you? And they start saying things like, no. That's aspects. But who are you? Who is your root? Who's your soul? And, it's hard for anyone to really answer. I mean, I still struggle because I feel like I grow so much. I'm a different person so many times. I have to reflect and be like, okay, who am I? Where is my root? And, that's the thing is like what really makes you you. And so, yeah, it's an amazing thing. And I mean, music, is the one language everyone can speak. And I mean, I'm so thankful that, I've listened and heard and, hear the stories behind the songs. And it is the same thing, it's just beautiful to me that, it's in these well-known songs of real life struggles that need to be told.
And books as well. One thing I did was I read a lot of books about how to be, a lot of books about hope, a lot of books about dreams, about what to become. And that helped me get the language because I didn't have the language. And so I didn't know how to put all my feelings into words. So reading really helped me put my feelings into words and my experience into words. It's like into context, like, okay, this is what I'm going through. Are there any books that you read that really helped you?
So throughout, not through my childhood, but in my adult life, when I was really learning how to maintain my recovery, I practiced and studied Buddhism. So I read a lot of books about communication, and there's a monk, a Vietnamese monk named Thich Nhat Hanh, that I read a lot of his books,
Mhm.
and really take every single lesson, every single message to heart. And then, yeah, they those really touched me. And I think going through all of this, I very am interested in survival stories and, inspiration
Right.
stories on how, people have beat the odds. And I very much enjoy those types of movies and those types of books, is studying how, someone else was able to do it in a completely situation. But the overall similarity is we're all just trying to survive, and how we did survive against whatever we were going through. And those books really interested me too.
Totally. Self-help books. A lot of those I read a lot before I even got interested in psychology. And I think that's what psychology really spoke to me because it gave me the tools that I needed to help myself. And so by helping myself, I was like, oh, then I can use this to help other people. And that's what really inspired me. So there's a lot of hope out there. For those people that are struggling right now listening, please don't give up. There's so much that's available. Please reach out to people. Please talk to people. Read the books if you're not ready to talk to people. Write in your journal if you're not ready. There are a lot of wonderful videos to watch on YouTube as far as like guided meditations and self-esteem boosters and self-confidence. So just reach out and not give up.
Absolutely. I second that. I had a friend who told me, I did a lot of this stuff on my own as a child. And then growing up, I very much was very independent. And I had a friend, I always say, you always, need someone to tell you things you tell other people. And this person was definitely that person for me. And, we were talking, and he interrupts me and he says, you know what? You don't get a medal for doing everything alone. So
Wow.
why are you, thinking you are going to get something for this? And it's a type of language that really can hit me, that makes me stop and know that this is all out of love and care, but that he's right.
Right.
I can fully admit that. And I think that's what I always think in my head, is that we're not winning by doing anything alone. And what is better than teamwork? And
We're
so,
better together. Yes, we're better when we're having a team and we have a social support and we have people to help us.
yes. So I always try to, I just wanted to follow you on that, because I totally agree that, we are there and that you are not alone.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being here and having this conversation. Where can people find you and connect with you?
Thank you. So my name is Amy Corey, and I'm very thankful I never had to buy that off of anyone. So it's just Amy Corey. My website's Amy Corey. And I would definitely give a follow. Leave my DMs open to talk. And I have some very exciting projects coming up when it comes to mental health and that kind of stuff. And my TEDx talk is available now as well. So I'm excited about that. But just Amy Corey, it's very simple.
Well,
So
wonderful. Yeah, I'm going to put all that in the show notes. I'm so grateful for you to join me in having this conversation. And I hope that this inspires some teens that are struggling to reach out and seek help. There's so much help out there. There's no need to suffer in isolation. There's no need to suffer by yourself. There's a lot of help. Just talk to people. It'll change your world.
yes, absolutely. And thank you so much for having this amazing platform for people to not feel alone. And thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Wow, that was such an interesting discussion with Amy. I hope the interview was as educational for you as it was for me. Let me know your thoughts about this episode, and remember to talk to a mental health professional if you're struggling with self-harming behaviors or feeling suicidal. If you're having suicidal thoughts and need support right now, there are people out there who are available to help you and provide you with the resources that can help. So if you're in immediate danger, make sure to call 911 or go to a hospital emergency room. You can also call the toll-free National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK or 1-800-273-8255 to be connected with a trained counselor at a crisis center in the United States anytime 24/7. Or you can also text HOME, HOME, to 741-741 to connect with a crisis counselor at the crisis text line from anywhere in the United States. It's free, it's available 24 hours, 7 days a week, and is confidential. If you're outside the United States, please visit iasp.info. I'll have all the information in the show notes as well, so be sure to check there. To learn more about Amy and leave me a comment about this episode, please visit transforminganxiety.com/45. If you haven't already, you can show support for the Mental Health Break podcast by subscribing wherever you're tuning in from today. And while you're at it, feel free to give us a review or a 5-star rating, since that'll help others find the podcast. We have some great interviews lined up, and you don't want to miss a single episode. Subscribe today so you get notified when new episodes drop. I can't wait to see you here next week. Same time, same place. Bye for now.